Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. So my name is Himanshu Chetri, and I am the Enterprise Architect at AdTech. And in today's webinar, we are going to cover the topic Skyrocket on how you can skyrocket your DevOps journey with the Atlassian Cloud. So let's review the agenda before we get started. So in today's webinar, we are going to talk about DevOps and the journey to transformation. We will then look into the Atlassian approach to DevOps. We will look at some key DevOps and DevSecOps features enabled by the Atlassian Cloud and some of the integrations that are available. Next, we will look at ITSM and DevOps integrations, and then we will summarize everything in the form of takeaways and also address Q&A. So before we dive into the core content of the webinar, just wanted to briefly introduce AdTech. So AdTech is a global organization, and we combine our technical expertise with efficiency in order to provide innovative results for the software and services around SDLC. We have been delivering software services and DevOps services for over 15 years at this point, and we have a global footprint in terms of locations and employees. So in terms of our core expertise, we certainly are DevOps experts, and we do things like automating the CI/CD pipeline, automating workflow configurations, and providing management and consulting on this topic. We also provide managed hosting services through our Code Factory service, where we can provide managed hosting on the cloud, as well as provide the automation for automating the application lifecycle for applications that you're hosting on your own infrastructure or on AWS or Azure. We have a partnership with a lot of the leading DevOps vendors in the space, and we also provide not only the implementation, but also training. We are also Atlassian Marketplace vendors, where we publish software that is utilized by a lot of different organizations across the globe. But also, if you have a need for custom integrations and custom development, we also specialize in that area. And we do a lot of different types of migrations, like going from on-premise hosting and systems to the cloud, and various other types. So in terms of our key products, we have three main products. The first is Excellent Table, which is our dynamic and collaborative spreadsheet for Confluence. We also provide Code Factory, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of the managed cloud hosting for all of your dev tools. We also have the enterprise version of Code Factory that you can use, like I mentioned as well. And also the other key product that we develop is called Unstoppable, which provides enhanced compliance to ensure that your dev and DevOps tools meet the need for visually impaired users. So let's dive into the main content for today's webinar. And let's start by talking about DevOps. So a lot of organizations have recognized that adopting DevOps is no longer optional, because the adoption of DevOps is the difference between leading the competition or being the one that is being disrupted. And there is a very urgent need for different types of teams within the organization to collaborate with one another. So, for example, the development and IT teams need to work closely together to ship meaningful and delightful customer experiences. Marketing and support teams may need to prepare for very frequent product changes and roll those out on a faster basis. Finance and sales teams may need to work closely to adapt for new pricing and packaging models. And then the management and executive teams really need to make sense of what's going on in the organization and ensuring that all of the work being done by all of these teams align to the goals of the business. But in terms of the key questions that a lot of companies are trying to figure out, there are four main questions that come up very frequently. So the first is, do I have a high-performing team that is happy and productive? The second question is, how do I support the team's needs to use the best tools for a given job? The other is, how do I maintain visibility across all of the tools that are being utilized in the software delivery process? And also, we cannot take security for granted. So it's also very necessary to ensure that all of the tools and practices are secure and compliant. Since a lot of these companies and organizations acknowledge that they need DevOps, in fact, in a survey that was done, 90% of the software teams that adopted DevOps reported that they had a positive impact on the business metrics. However, on the flip side, an almost equal number, about 84%, reported that they faced significant barriers to implementing DevOps. So it seems like great progress has been made in DevOps transformation, but few have found the sort of ideal state for their internal DevOps adoption. The other thing that came out from the survey was that nearly 50% of developers only spend between 1 to 4 hours a day on the actual coding task. And this is a pretty disturbing number, because as a developer, you expect them to spend the majority of the time in the core software development and coding activities. But in a lot of cases, it was found that they were spending less than half of the time on this. And a lot of the time that was meant to be spent on coding is spent struggling with all of these tools that they are expected to use as developers and as part of the software delivery process. And all of this context switching ends up becoming very expensive because obviously the salary spent on developers can be pretty expensive. However, they also deliver a lot of value. So we need to ensure that the effort and the resources provided by developers is not going to so all of these unnecessary activities which could be potentially solved for. So if we look at the annual average salary, and we can come up with this rough $72 per hour hourly rate. And if we assume that in the worst case scenario, developers are wasting maybe even 6 hours a day dealing with all of these different tools and a lot of the manual back and forth and context switching and manual integrations, you get a pretty staggering number in terms of the hundreds of thousands of dollars that are being wasted by this kind of inefficiency. And this kind of inefficiency is definitely a problem worth solving, because if we look at some leading industry examples, companies like Fortnite, which produce video games, they reported that by releasing their software on time and being ahead of the competition, it made the difference of additional $2.75 million a day in revenue. For Domino's, during COVID, they were able to quickly adapt not only their app, but the entire company model and how they do work. And that helped them increase their same store sales by 16%, while a lot of the competitors were shrinking. And for Facebook, their ability to resolve critical incidents, even by a single minute, means that they save more than $100,000 per minute. So these are some pretty staggering numbers in terms of both the savings as well as potential losses when there is less than ideal productivity for developers and the software delivery process. But if we look at some key challenges faced in DevOps adoption, we can identify four main challenges. So the first challenge is the time-consuming aspect. In terms of, do you build the right DevOps toolchain by spending a lot of time, or do you adapt a ready-to-go solution? The second part is the debate between autonomy versus coordination, where you want to allow developers to work where and how they want, but on the other hand, you also don't want to hurt the visibility when it comes to tracking all of the work being done by developers spanning across multiple tools. The other problem is of breadth versus depth when it comes to DevOps tooling, where there are some all-in-one DevOps solutions, but they tend to be very restrictive. And building your own solution can also be time-consuming and expensive. And developers, in terms of the number of responsibility, it keeps increasing because of the additional processes and tools that organizations are introducing. This adds up to a lot of manual processes, and that means longer time to value delivered. And Atlassian definitely strives to solve a lot of these problems. And like we mentioned, right, there's this entire sprawl of tools and technologies. There are functional areas that teams need to tackle, like requirements gathering, building the software, delivering it, and supporting it. But you need the whole suite of tools and technologies in order to accomplish these goals. And you cannot just simply buy a solution to fix all of this. I mean, you certainly need to choose the right tools and technologies, but that alone does not give you the ideal state for DevOps. So you have this other sort of a barrier of actual practical implementation beyond just getting the tools. Atlassian strives to solve a lot of these problems by connecting dev, IT, and operations teams to the core goals of the business in ways that most other vendors can't. And they strive to enable Atlassian customers to build new products and services faster with less manual processes, and enable the customers to deliver changes with speed to production quickly. And when things do go wrong, Atlassian tools enable you to fix these problems faster. Atlassian provides the entire suite of tools and technologies for everything from planning to tracking, managing your source code, managing the builds and deployments and releases, and also once things are running in production, they provide you the tools and technologies to respond to key alerts and managing incidents in a more efficient way, as well as communicating all of this to your customers. Jira tends to be the backbone that connects a lot of the other Atlassian tools and technologies. But as we most of us know, Atlassian tools alone are not, they don't make up all of the technologies that dev teams have to deal with. They have to deal with things like AWS or Azure or Google Cloud for the infrastructure. They may have different monitoring and observability tools. They may be using different kinds of test management solutions, group chat tools, and so on. But again, the key idea still is that all of these tools, all of these third-party tools can integrate in meaningful ways with the Atlassian ecosystem and with Jira as being the connecting backbone. And we'll look at some examples of that a bit later. The other thing is Atlassian also has a very robust marketplace with a lot of apps that extend the features provided by the Atlassian tools, as well as integrating with the third-party tools. So a lot of the time when our customers have to do something that the Atlassian tools or some of their other DevOps tools cannot achieve by themselves, there is a good chance that there exists some kind of integration in the Atlassian marketplace or app in the marketplace that can help them achieve this. And this can save a lot of time and money because you don't have to necessarily build a lot of these integrations from the ground up. In order to understand why Jira can be the main backbone for connecting all of these tools, technology, processes, and people, it's also necessary to understand the idea of systems of record. So almost every company has different kinds of systems of records. So for example, they might be maintaining the customer records in a CRM. They most likely might be using an ERP system for finance, and they may have some kind of HR management system. But the unit of work and managing the system of record for the work itself is something that a lot of companies are struggling with. And Jira can act as the universal system of records for not only for the development task, but for any kind of work done within the organization. And Jira can help your organization answer these simple questions, but at scale. So it helps you answer what work needs to get done, who is going to do that work, and when does it need to get done. These may seem like simple questions, but we come across a lot of customers who are certainly struggling with some aspects of being able to answer this, especially at scale. And with the help of Jira, you can decompose your big idea into multiple one or more Jira projects. And then you can break down these Jira projects into individual units of work, also known as Jira issues. And Jira issues can become the single source of truth for the unit of work within your teams and organization. And Atlassian Jira software has become the industry standard when it comes to the unit of work for developers, certainly. And Jira can allow different individuals and teams to collaborate and communicate with each other in a more efficient manner. And it's not only connecting the people and teams within the organization, but it's also connecting all of the tools, technology, and services that teams need to rely on in order to deliver value to their end users and customers. Atlassian solutions, especially with the help of the Atlassian Cloud, it can also support enterprise and their needs in terms of providing solutions for Agile and DevOps for software teams, ITSM and IT operations for IT teams, and general work management for business and almost any other kind of team in the organization. So in terms of the more specific feature set that Atlassian Cloud enables, we can look at a few key areas that Atlassian Cloud enables for DevOps transformation. So the first area is enabling teams to accelerate their workflows. So Atlassian tools out of the box help you get easily up and running with the best of breed tools and best practices. And the Atlassian Cloud also enables developers to achieve autonomy without sacrificing visibility and coordination. The Atlassian Marketplace, like we mentioned, also provides a great degree of additional features as well as integrations. And all of these add up to enable the ability to deliver value to customers and spend less time updating project statuses. So let's look at some features in detail. So within a project in Jira Cloud, you have a section called code. And in this section, you can link all of the code repositories associated with this particular Jira project. So this can act as a central directory for all of the source code that is associated with your Jira project. So this way, it becomes a one-stop shop for new and existing members of your dev teams to keep track of all of the source code associated with their projects. But the integration is pretty deep in terms of the ability to link Jira issues to code changes. And on the screen, we see an example of a Jira issue. On the right-hand side, we are zoomed into this section called the development panel. And we can see that for this particular Jira issue, there is one code branch associated with it, 10 code commits associated with it, one pull request, which is already closed. And there are also 2 builds associated with it. We see a green check mark, which indicates that the last build was successful. And then below that, we also see the releases section. And it shows that this change has already been deployed to production. And it also shows us some information on some feature flags. And this is extremely powerful because by glancing at a status of a Jira issue, not only do you know the status of the issue itself and all of the comments and activity associated with it, but also it automatically links all of the development activity, like the code commits and the branches and the code reviews through the pull requests, as well as the builds and deployment. And all of this integration works out of the box. And all that developers really need to do is anytime they make a code commit into Bitbucket or GitHub, they need to mention the Jira issue key as part of the commit message. And by mentioning the Jira issue key, the issue can automatically link it to all of the code activity and the commit activity. And the same goes for the pull requests. Now, if you are using Bitbucket pipelines, like in this example, you will also be able to track the deployment status. And a lot of the times we see our customers struggling to create manual release notes where they try to manually track all of the code changes and issues associated with a particular release. But in this case, it is automatically generating this information for us due to the out-of-the-box integration between Jira and Bitbucket, both in terms of the code and code changes in Bitbucket, as well as the CI/CD and the build and deployment activity within the Bitbucket pipelines. And this is extremely powerful. There is also this section called deployments within the Jira software project, and it builds this very dynamic timeline for all of the builds and deployments associated with different Jira issues. And similar to what we highlighted earlier, this feature simply works when developers mention the Jira issue key as part of their commit message. And on this screen, we can see deployment activity. It will show us the list of issues ordered by the most recently deployed. So everyone in the team can get a sense for what is being worked on and what was delivered to customers and end users. We can also filter the information on the screen based on the environment, like a particular deployment environment. And also we can see what was shipped to production recently, which is again an extremely powerful feature and eliminates a lot of the manual reporting and work. There is also a releases page. And on this screen, we can also see some pretty interesting metrics. It can help us identify some bottlenecks by showing us key statistics like the pull request cycle time and the deployment frequency. So it shows us some trends in data for the code reviews in the form of pull requests as well as the deployment frequency. And it allows us to view the cycle time at the pull request and deployment level. And all of these features are included as part of your Jira Cloud subscription. So you don't need a third-party tool or worse, manual reporting to figure this out. So the next area we'll look at is some examples of how Atlassian Cloud can help you secure software in a more secure manner. So DevSecOps is a buzzword that's becoming quite popular these days, but basically it's injecting security into the entire software delivery process, where you are trying to not just do some security checks at the end of the software delivery process, but you're trying to ensure best practices for application security and information security throughout the entirety of your software delivery process. So Atlassian Cloud integrates with some leading vendors in the application security space. So for example, right now we are looking at a screenshot from within Bitbucket. And in Bitbucket, we have enabled the integration with the application security scanning service called SNCC. And what this does is when developers are reviewing are performing peer review of the source code using the pull request feature in Bitbucket, this will also integrate with SNCC to perform application security checks and scans for all of the code changes that they are introducing. And it will provide a report like the example we have up on the screen to show us any kind of key findings based on the severity. And these scans, application security scans and checks are initiated automatically for pull requests. So this way, the reviewers can not only take into account the general code changes, but also any kind of security vulnerabilities or potential vulnerabilities that might be introduced by these code changes. There's also a feature called Code Insights, which provides reports, annotations, and metrics right within the pull request itself. And what's really interesting is that even though the results are provided by this third-party tool, developers, for the most part, can stay within Bitbucket itself. They don't need to context switch between these two different tools. They can stay within Bitbucket, look at the key results. They have the link and the explanation for potential fixes and also potential versions of the dependencies and libraries they're using that could fix these issues, as well as the versions that introduce the problems in the first place. Next, we are looking at Bitbucket pipeline, which is a feature within Bitbucket Cloud to create the CI/CD setup for your project. And by adding a few configuration lines in your Bitbucket pipelines configuration YAML file, you can automatically scan dependencies for vulnerabilities like we saw earlier. So within the pipeline, it's just a step that is introduced, and it's a one-time setup. After that, all of these security scans will happen automatically. After software is delivered in production, you also have to ensure that this process itself is stable. You have to ensure your builds and deployments are stable and not broken, as well as anytime there's an incident, you ideally want to have this integration and feedback loop with the dev team. And Atlassian provides different kinds of integrations that enable these goals. So in this particular example, we are looking at a screen, and this is a dashboard within OpsGenie. And within this OpsGenie dashboard, we can see a timeline of successful and failed deployments using Bitbucket. And we can also see this in relation to past and ongoing incidents. So having all of this information in one place means that we may be able to correlate incidents to code deployments as potential causes of incidents. And we find a lot of customers don't have that capability currently, where they spend a lot of manual effort trying to figure out, if a recent deployment broke something in production, or if it root cause associated with an ongoing or recent incident. And with this kind of automatic correlation, it can enable you to triage and identify these kinds of issues faster. The other issue is that anytime a key build is broken, or if the production deployment itself starts failing, this should be treated as a high severity incident in most cases. And with the help of the Bitbucket integration with OpsGenie, OpsGenie can automatically create incidents and alert the on-call teams anytime these kinds of key builds or deployments are broken. So we did a pretty quick tour of some key examples of how Atlassian Cloud can help you kickstart your the DevOps journey within your organization. But we wanted to do a quick summary of what we covered. So we identified some key challenges of DevOps adoption. We looked at how Atlassian strives to help you solve some of these challenges with their unique approach in terms of providing this rich and robust suite of tools, but also enabling integration with a lot of the other third-party tools and technologies out there. And the goal of using Atlassian tools in this integrated manner is to achieve this unified solution that works best for your team and organization, and enabling teams to connect and coordinate in a manner where they can eliminate or at least reduce a lot of the context switching and manual back and forth between the different tools and technologies that they need to manage. And that was it in terms of the content we had for today's webinar. If you have any questions, we can try to address it in the Q&A section. So please let us know if you have any questions. You should be able to post it in the Q&A section within the Zoom webinar. So I see we have a question where question was, are these features only available for Atlassian Cloud, and which of these features are available in Data Center? So definitely a lot of the features we've highlighted today are mainly available for Atlassian Cloud. On Data Center, there are some features like the development panel feature that we showed earlier. There is a similar integration for Data Center where you can connect Jira Data Center with a Bitbucket Data Center and get some of the information like the commits and pull requests associated with it. Also, you can integrate Bamboo with Jira Data Center, and it can help populate the information like the deployments and builds associated with a Jira issue. But then we also showed some features like the release report and the cycle time for pull requests and deployments. Those are exclusive to the Atlassian Cloud and Jira Software Cloud and the integration with the Bitbucket pipeline. The examples we highlighted for DevSecOps and application security and the OpsGD integration are also mostly based on the cloud offerings from Atlassian. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar today, and hope you have a great rest of the day.